Week 16 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to pick up this week. The first guy, Anthony Santander of the Baltimore Orioles. So Santander, one of the hottest hitters this week here, and he's been on a tear of late. Right now, only available in 43% of fantasy leagues, so fantasy owners should have to go out there and get him now before it's too late on the season. 19 home runs, 56 RBIs, 47 runs scored, a 255 batting average, and a 338 on base. So Santander, he's had a nice turnaround season this season here. Last season, he had 18 home runs. He passed that today with 19. And over the last few weeks here for Santander, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 371 average, and a 436 on base. So right now, he's playing great baseball. This Baltimore team, they've been playing good in the month of July here. We'll see if it can continue into August for them. But Santander's definitely been a main part of that. July 25th versus Tampa, 1 for 4 with a run and a rib. July 26th versus Tampa, 1 for 3 with a homer in that one. July 27th versus Tampa, 1 for 4 with a run. July 28th versus Tampa, 2 for 4. July 29th at Cincinnati, 3 for 4. Homer, 2 RBIs. July 30th at Cincinnati, 1 for 4 with a rib. And July 31st at Cincinnati, 3 for 4 with a homer in that one. So right now, if you need some power, Santander is definitely a guy to go out there and get. He's going to drive in runs as well. When he's in the middle of that Baltimore lineup, and one of their big hitters, especially if they trade Trey Mancini away as well, which has been a rumor at the deadline, he'll be their probably main hitter over there, is Santander. The next guy, Seth Brown of the Oakland Athletics. Is Seth Brown. It's been a solid season here for Brown here, and he's one of the hottest pickups as well this week in fantasy. On the season, 15 home runs, 44 RBIs, 34 runs scored, 7 stolen bases, a 234 average, and a 282 on base. But over the last few weeks here for Brown, he's been on fire. 5 home runs, 6 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 414 batting average, and a 414 on base. So right now available in 88% of fantasy leagues. The only thing I don't like about Brown is his on-base to batting average ratio isn't all that great. He does strike out a decent amount, but right now he's showing power. He's stealing some bases here as Brown, and this Oakland team's going nowhere this season, obviously, so they're going to play some of the younger guys or the unknown guys like Brown here, and he qualifies at first and outfield as well. So right here, I definitely would give Brown an ad this week. Until he fizzles out, then you drop him. But right now, he's playing good baseball. July 22nd versus Texas, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. July 23rd versus Texas, 1 for 4. July 24th versus Texas, 0 for 1. July 29th at the White Sox, 2 for 4, 2 home runs in that one. July 30th at the White Sox, 2 for 4 with a homer. And July 31st at the White Sox, 0 for 3. So Brown's the cleanup hitter here for Oakland. And right now, he's a guy they're definitely taking a good look at. And fantasy owners who need some power should as well here, because he's playing good baseball. He's getting an everyday opportunity, and I would give him an ad this week. The next guy I look to add this week is Adobe Diaz of the Houston Astros. So Diaz, we know he qualifies at tons of positions: first, second, third, short, and outfield. The super utility man here for fantasy owners. On the season, 9 home runs, 25 RBIs, a stolen base, 27 runs scored, a 251 average, and a 307 on base. But he's emerged again over the last couple weeks. He had 3 home runs, 4 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 343 average, and a 378 on base. At Diaz, if you need some versatility and a guy's going to help him batting average and a run scored, I think Diaz is a decent ad. But obviously, he could fizzle out as well, is Diaz, like we've seen him on and off this season here, where he was a hot pickup for a few weeks, and then he's a guy you would drop who's been struggling. But right now, while he's got the good average going and he qualifies at all these positions, he's definitely a good ad this week. The last few games here for Diaz: July 25th at Oakland, 1 for 4 with a run. July 26th at Oakland, 0 for 4. July 27th at Oakland, 0 for 4. July 29th versus Seattle, 3 for 5 with 2 homers in that one. July 30th versus Seattle, 3 for 3 with a homer, 2 RBIs. And July 31st versus Seattle, 0 for 1. So right here, he's showing some pop over the last few games as Diaz. And if you need a utility guy who could do a little bit of everything here and there, I would give him an ad. But it wouldn't surprise me as well if this is just a little bit of a hot streak and he goes back to old form where he doesn't do much. But right now, I would give him an ad this week. The next guy is Stephencchini of the Cleveland Guardians. So Quan, he started off the first 3-4 weeks of the season, one of the best players in fantasy, and then he fizzled out. But right now, he's got things going Once again, on the season, 2 home runs, 28 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 48 runs scored, 296 average, and a 367 on base. But over the last few weeks here for Kwan, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 9 runs scored, a 396 average, and a 408 on base. So this is a guy that don't draw a walk. He's an early swinger of the count here, Kwan. But he's also a guy that don't strike out much either as well. Only 31 strikeouts in 324 at-bats on the season. So the last few games here for Kwan, July 26th at Boston, 3 for 5 with a run in a bag. July 27th at Boston, 1 for 5 with a rib. July 28th at Boston, 1 for 4. July 29th at Tampa, 3 for 5, 2 runs scored. July 30th at Tampa, 1 for 5. July 31st at Tampa, 1 for 5. So right here, Kwan, he's on a hitting tear right now. No doubt about it, hitting in 9 games in a row. And he's available in 50% of fantasy leagues. So if you need batting average, a guy who's not going to strike out a lot, and a guy who gets on base at a decent clip, no doubt about it, especially with the 370 on base on the season, he's a guy that'll help you. He's not going to help you in RBIs. He's not going to help you in home runs. But stolen bases a little bit, batting average and on base will definitely help. And I would give him an ad this week here, and he's one of the top pickups this week. Next guy, Alec Baum of the Philadelphia Phillies. So one of the former top prospects in the Phillies system a few seasons ago. And now he's starting to get things going, I believe, here is Alec Baum. On the season, hasn't been all that great, but he's really picking it up of late, though. Like I mentioned, 7 home runs, 41 RBIs, a stolen base, 51 runs scored, a 295 batting average, and a 330 on base. But over the last few weeks here for Baum, 1 home run, 7 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 439 average, and a 460 on base. So he's playing out of his mind. He's been one of the hottest pickups in fantasy baseball over the last week here. Added in 24% of leagues, but still available in 49% of leagues. So the last few games here for Baum, July 24th versus the Cubs, 3 for 4 in RBI. July 25th versus Atlanta, 3 for 4, 2 runs scored. July 26th versus Atlanta, 2 for 4. July 27th versus Atlanta, 2 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. July 28th at Pittsburgh, 2 for 5, a run and a rib. July 29th at Pittsburgh, 2 for 5. July 30th at Pittsburgh, 0 for 4. And July 31st at Pittsburgh, a monster ball game, 4 for 5, a homer, an RBI, and 3 runs scored. So right now, Baum, he's been on a tear for this Philly team, especially after the All-Star break. And he's on a 12-game hitting streak. So this Philly team, they've been playing great baseball, no doubt about it, since after the break here. Winning 6 games in a row is this Philly team. And they're trying to make up a lot of ground in the wild card and even maybe trying to make a chance for second place in the division. But right now, Alec Baum, he's living up to the hype finally, maybe. Batting average is up there. He's not going to give you much power, but run scored, batting average, and on base has been his specialty this season here is Baum. And he's definitely a guy would give an opportunity to this week. And if he struggles, you just drop him back to the waiver wire. The next guy is Jose Miranda of the Minnesota Twins. I've mentioned the last couple weeks here is Miranda as an ad. And he's playing great baseball as well here in his rookie season. 10 home runs, 39 RBIs, 24 runs scored at 276 average, and a 318 on base. But over the last few weeks here, he's been red, white hot, whatever you want to call it. 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 440 batting average, and a 500 on base. And over the last month here, he's hitting 360 with a 414 on base. So right now, Miranda, one of the hottest pickups over the last month of the season. Still available somehow in 60% of fantasy leagues, and he's got good versatility, qualifying at first and third base. The last few games here for Miranda, July 23rd at Detroit, 1 for 4 with a run. July 24th at Detroit, 3 for 4, 2 runs and 2 RBIs. July 26th at the Brewers, 3 for 4, run, 2 RBIs. July 27th at Milwaukee, 3 for 4, a homer in that one. July 29th at San Diego, 0 for 4. July 30th at San Diego, 1 for 3 with 2 runs and a ribbon. July 31st at San Diego, 1 for 4 with a homer. So he's finding the power stroke here is Miranda. I know on the season he only has 10, but that's 10 home runs and only 214 at-bats, which is pretty solid in my opinion. So right now he's getting an everyday opportunity. He's been one of the Twins' brighter hitters this season, he is Miranda. And he's definitely a guy who would give an ad this week with his first and third, obviously, eligibility in fantasy baseball, and just the tear he's been on over the last month of the season. The next guy, Adobe Diaz of the Tampa Bay Rays. So another guy who qualifies at first and third here is Diaz. On the season, 5 home runs, 33 RBIs, a stolen base, 45 runs scored, 293 average, but a 402 on base, which is incredible for the season here for Diaz. And the last month of the season, he's been on a tear as well. 2 homers, 18 RBIs, 15 runs scored, a 348 average, and a 433 on base. So he's been an on-base machine here. And he's a guy available in widely amount of fantasy leagues at 59% of leagues. And he's getting an everyday opportunity here for the Rays. If you need some RBIs, you need some batting average, and if you need some on-base percentage, he's definitely a guy that I would give an ad to this week. July 25th at Baltimore, 1 for 4. July 26th at Baltimore, 0 for 5. July 27th at Baltimore, 3 for 5 with an RBI. July 29th versus Cleveland, 1 for 4 with a run. July 30th versus Cleveland, 1 for 4, homer, 2 RBIs. And July 31st versus Cleveland, in that one, 0 for 5. So right here, last season, I know he hit 13 home runs. We'll see if he catches that mark. But like I mentioned, if you want batting average and on-base percentage and decent runs scored, Yandy Diaz is definitely a guy we'll give an ad to this week, and a guy you could put at your utility spot or third base or first. The next guy is Rowdy Tellez of the Milwaukee Brewers. If you're looking for pure power, Tellez is definitely that guy, and he's available in 43% of fantasy leagues. So a good season here for Tellez. 20 home runs, 65 RBIs, 41 runs scored, a 234 average, and a 314 on base. But over the last few weeks here for him, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 294 average, and a 385 on base. So Tellez, not available in tons of fantasy leagues like I mentioned. Good mark for him, 20 home runs. Possibly could finish with 30 on the season here. And that's his specialty, home runs and RBIs. Everything else you're pretty much not going to get from Tellez. But if you need some homers and ribs, he's definitely a guy to get. July 24th versus the Rockies, 2 for 5, a run and a rib. July 26th versus the Twins, 0 for 5. July 27th versus the Twins, 2 for 4, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. July 29th versus the Red Sox, 0 for 3. July 30th at Boston, 3 for 4, run and a rib. And July 31st at Boston, 0 for 2. So right here this season, he's got 4 games with 2 or more home runs in a game here is Tellez. And he's definitely a guy that has that power stroke, and he could get into a power surge here, Tellez. If that's what you're looking for, he's definitely an ad this week. The next guy I would look to add this week here is Humor Candelario of the Detroit Tigers. So the Tigers out of it this season, a bad season. They might trade some of their veterans on this roster over the next and younger players in the next few days here as the deadline approaches August 2nd. Even Tyreek Skubal is on the trade block here. But anyway, on the season for Candelario, 10 homers, 32 RBIs, 32 runs scored, a 213 average, and a 276 on base. Obviously, those numbers aren't going to pop off the charts, but the last few weeks is where he's putting in the work. 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 361 average, and a 395 on base here for Candelario. So right now, if you need a guy who's going to hit for some average, and he's playing every day, I think he's a decent ad. July 26th versus the Padres, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. July 27th versus the Padres, 3 for 4, 2 ribs. July 28th at Toronto, 0 for 4. July 29th at Toronto, 1 for 5. July 30th at Toronto, 1 for 3 with a run. And July 31st at Toronto, 0 for 3. So right now he's playing good baseball. He is Candelario, getting the everyday opportunity, batting 5th to 6th for this Tiger team. And like I mentioned, this Tiger team selling a lot of players off here. So Candelario, he possibly could be even one of these guys sold off. But if he is or isn't, he definitely has some fantasy value this week. And he's available in a whopping 86% of fantasy leagues. And the final hitter I looked at this week's Josh Rojas of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Rojas, he's shown some flashes this season. And a guy I mentioned early in the season is an ad. But then he fizzled out. But now he's back on the fantasy radar, and another utility guy is well qualifying at second, third, short, and outfield, but only available, surprisingly, in 37% of fantasy leagues. On the season for Rojas, 6 home runs, 29 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, 37 runs scored, 278 average, and a solid 353 on base. But over the last few weeks here, he's been hot. He's Rojas, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 3 runs scored, 333 average, and a 455 on base. If you need some batting average And on base percentage with some stolen bases, Rojas is definitely a great add here. But like I mentioned, he's not available in many fantasy leagues, but he's definitely a guy I would try to get if he's out there. July 24th versus the Nats, 3 for 5, a run and a rib. July 25th versus San Francisco, 2 for 4, an RBI, 3 stolen bases. July 27th versus the Giants, 2 for 4, a homer. July 29th at Atlanta, 1 for 4. July 30th at Atlanta, 0 for 4. And July 31st at Atlanta, 0 for 4. So right now, he's getting the everyday opportunity. He's been batting first to second for the most part here for this Diamondback team. And like I mentioned, with his versatility and his stolen base prowess, he's definitely a guy we look to add this week here. We know stolen bases is definitely a lost art in fantasy baseball, but right here, Rojas is doing that decent, and he's got a good on-base and batting average this season, and I would give him an add this week. So that's a few hitters I look to add here for Week 16 of the fantasy baseball season.